There's a big conspiracy.
Hello and welcome to Shiny Side Out with
Dave
and Mackie on WZZR, broadcasting from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. Actually, no, it's revolution.radio. That's right. We've changed things up. It's awesome. Where it's more than just radio. So jump in the chat room if you can. This is show number 394, 490, and 300. We're going to talk about reincarnation. Reincarnation and all its trappings. It's on air, online, and on your smart device, so grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a great tabletop digital radio. If you missed Trolaris' show, shame on you. They had a special roundtable today with Matt Painter and an assortment of excellent voices. And they were talking about it in the last half hour at least, about, I guess, psychic or paranormal research and making contact with the other side. Of course, reincarnation sort of fits into that mold as well. What happens after is the great question here. Now, if you missed Solaris' show, which you shouldn't have, I do frequently, so I have to listen to it afterwards. It only costs $5.95 a month to access the Freedom Slips archives. Check out her shows. Check out our shows. Check out everybody's shows. That's right. That's what $5 a month will buy you. You can't even get a coffee for that. Not a decent one anyway. Not anymore. So please do spend the money. And just very quickly, this is listener-funded radio, meaning your donations or even product purchases on the website go a long way toward keeping this station going. We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. For me, it's the Dark people, and for Dave,
the Dark and Jung.
Thank you, Dave. And we would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Today is a sad day. And I'll get Dave to say a few words as well, of course. But the station owner has passed, Nighthawk. Our condolences and sorrow go out to his family and friends at this time. He brought many different voices together here at Revolution Radio, and Dave and I are forever grateful to have been given the opportunity to have a voice and to have a platform. Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. From the first time that I found the YouTube clips getting around and I tracked down and researched to be able to get to Revolution Radio, from then till now, forever indebted to Nighthawk for that booming voice that invited me to have a show when I called in on the first time I ever called in. Thank you forever. Remember that they will always be alive in your memories, and that pieces of time, little segments of your life which you could call moments, those moments become memories and they become part of you, and they are you, and you're built of them, you're constructed of those. So to Liz, I know you're having a hard time, and for all of the other hosts here, we owe ourselves to not just Nighthawk, the wonderful guy that gave us everything that we have here, but to his memory, and we should always remember that. Thanks.
Beautifully said. I completely agree. So, in that spirit, let's keep the station alive by all means possible, and that takes you, esteemed listener, of course, to help with, which means again donations if you can, or even purchases of the sponsors on the website would be really appreciated. Click through. There's a lot of great information. There's a really good product. If you listen to the station, it's the kind of product you want. Okay, it is what you're after. And like I said earlier, the archives hold all of the show audio for the past for all the show hosts. So I urge you to go and have a listen, because this is not just a journey. I mean, if you're a tourist, that's okay. That's okay. And you're welcome, of course, to share part of our journey. But this station, and certainly Dave and I, looking at this from a broader perspective, this is more important than just entertainment. We hope that you enjoy listening, and we hope that you are entertained. Otherwise you probably switch to something else. But more so, we hope that we bring you some information that you might not have heard about, or some information that is maybe glossed over in the mainstream media, or information that is so left field it can't be found anywhere because it is just so left field. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means, it hasn't been discussed. It's not open for discussion. Noam Chomsky said a beautiful thing. He said, as long as you're inside the box, you can say whatever you want. No censorship necessary, right? And he's, of course, 100% correct, right? If you're in the box, say what you want. You step outside the box, it's a whole different ballgame. Independent thought alarm, wee, 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 so, and out comes your frontal lobe. No, it's important to research, and we hope that you take the opportunity when you listen to us and other hosts here, of course, that you are maybe researching things further and seeing, well, what are we talking about? Does it have any legs to stand on? Is it complete nonsense? Are we making it up? For the most part, I can tell you that everything we bring you, we've researched meticulously. There are leaps of faith, absolutely, and there are certain conjectures we draw. While we give you facts, we will also give you opinion, okay, considered opinions. We don't really have an agenda. Neither Dave nor I have any agendas at all. It's safe to say that we're looking for the truth. Yeah, and whatever shape or form that might take. So when we're wrong, we'll freely admit it. Happy to, in fact. And when we're right, we'll also say it. We've been saying things for years, 8 years, but we've been saying things right from the start, which are now coming to fruition. We're not prophets. We're not, we're not seers, but we can see things, and we can deduct things, and we draw the bow. We've done well. We both have undertaken study in various different fields, both Dave and I, and we bring a host of different experiences to this. Right? It's really critical. Dave just posted something to me. Book burnings as a meme from Facebook. It's not just piles of books that are burning, no, but it's also the censorship that is applied by YouTube and similar social media platforms on the content that is disagreeable. And disagreeable these days covers a broad spectrum, I can tell you. So, it's funny. I'm always reminded, Dave, when I think about all the things that you can't talk about anymore, mm-hmm. Be it 1210, yeah, get that. Be it anything to do with the Chintons, right? or
that's a breakaway family, yeah.
Or the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
The Kennedys.
That's the JSP, isn't it?
That's what that is, and it's really interesting. So these diseases or these mental disorders are reminding me of this, because it's now a mental disorder to feel grief. Grief is a mental disorder. Wanting to eat healthy food is a mental disorder.
You know what? That used to be like normal. That was just called normal, but no. Someone's named it now. And now you can a normal person can suffer from a mental disorder because they wish to make the choice to eat healthily, and I don't. So, and I'm not saying that they choose, to have all their things cut and washed and it be organic, just not the junk food. Yeah. So if you feel grief, right, as we do today, of course, with Nighthawk's passing. Mm-hmm.
we are all suffering from a mental disorder, grief, and if we then wish to eat healthily, it's a compounding mental disorder. It's incredible. It's astounding. I don't know what else. Oh, actually, I do know what else could happen. Whenever I'm in the States, and we are in Australia, and it is a place. It's an actual place, in the southern hemisphere.
We're not just paid actors.
No, we're not just paid.
The hand us
Yeah,
out for a check.
I wish I was a paid actor, but no, we're not. But the point here is that we are now in an age where when I watch American TV when I'm in the States, like I said, I want to say 60 or 70% of all advertising is medication, some kind of pharmaceutical advertisement. In no other country in the world have I seen the sheer pervasiveness of this kind of advertising. I travel extensively for work, as Dave can attest to much to his chagrin, but and my family for that matter. But the point is that there's a pill for virtually everything. But not only that, there's this list as long as my leg of things that could go wrong, which is also shared with you in the ad. So you're getting the ad for the drug, whatever it might be, the pills, right? And then at the same time, they also tell you all the things that could go wrong if you take the drug. I don't know why anybody would take any of the drugs they're advertising on TV, because the list of side effects sounds worse than the potential, I guess the alleviating effect of the drugs in your ailment.
That's right.
There's something for skin condition, like psoriasis, like really dry skin, and there's this pill, and then it says, you can suffer from internal bleeding and hair loss and weight loss, hemorrhaging. All kinds of things.
Do you know what, Mickey? Do you know what? I actually think that toilet roll of you've read some of them, right? Some have like 200 or 300 side effects, which are negative side effects, not the positive ones, like you might get better. But I think by reading them, you will yourself to get better, so you don't get any of those.
I know, right?
It's a placebo multiplier.
Yeah, and that's a whole different kind of worms there with the placebo. One of my pet peeves is our need, our propensity to name things. Once we've named it, we promptly dismiss it. Oh, placebo effect.
The naming of large words.
Naming of large words. No, but it's true though. It's astounding that once we've named it, we can then categorize it and file it away. The placebo effect is a legitimate phenomenon. And we have no idea why it happens. We don't know why. All we know is that somehow the body, we think, is healing itself because it thinks it got something that made it better, right? So now you put that in your pipe and smoke it. That is what we should be investigating in the medical researches we undertake. Okay? Not finding more and better drugs. I'm not against finding more and better drugs. I'm just saying there's something real here that requires a lot more investigation. A lot more investigation.
Well, what's funny about that is they have done the research into placebo, but their findings are that they're not going to make the money like GE and Tesla. They won't. How can we make money out of people getting well on their own? Don't know.
That's not good. Hell, we'll just license their genomes. There you go. If they want to use their genome, they're going to pay us. What happens if they don't pay us? We'll just take their genome, we turn it into like a little puddle of protoplasm. There's a puddle of protoplasm. I'm sure we can just
make them sick through the conventional method, sir. Right, okay, that might be cheaper.
He didn't pay his DNA insurance.
How do we do that? Just keep running ads for medications. That'll make people sick.
Yeah, it would, it would. But it's really, and I want to give you a little bit of a rant, then I'll hand it over to my esteemed colleagues who's got a few things to share, in fact, today, which are really interesting, by the way. So just bear with me for just 1 second, because I have a deep concern for us as people. We are no closer to growing up than we were 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Some might argue that we've moved further away from becoming adults, as a species, that is. We are now hating on this girl, Greta Thunberg. Rightly or wrongly, I have no opinion on her credibility or anything like that. The message she has is correct. She is correct in what she says. Okay, and anybody who doesn't believe that or doesn't want to believe that is a moron. Big money, okay, runs the world. Big money, and I'm talking about people now here, right? Not the hidden elite. I'm talking about people. Big money people. They don't give a hoot what's going to happen because they're going to be okay. They have made all the plans. If you think you're a prepper, you're an amateur compared to those people. They've got underground bunkers. I wouldn't be surprised if they had, satellite stations or even stations on the moon, for crying out loud. This is where the technology already is. We know this. Okay, read 0 point. Hunt for 0 point. Read that. By the Defense Weekly, Jane's Defense Weekly author. I forget his name now, but I've got the book in my shelf. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, technology has moved far, far, far ahead of where we think it is. So these people are platinum preppers. Yeah, they're not going to survive.
You think Jeff Bezos? Is it Bezos?
I want to say maybe. Go on.
Well, the head of Amazon.
Oh yes, I think that's correct. Yes.
Yeah, you don't think him and Elon Musk have plans, right? Elon's out there in the limelight, making his new city on Mars. He's not going to be hanging around after 2023, right?
Not if you can help it.
No. Not if you can help it.
This is really the point, all right? This is really the point. These people are going to be okay. You can prep all you want, right? And I said this before. In past times, when other civilizations ended, many thousands of years ago, the elite, the few, were always okay. And never mind the hidden masters. Okay, I'm not talking about the people behind the curtain, down the stairs, in the basement, controlling it from a room across the road. That's not what I'm talking about, right? And here we are sitting in the theater watching shadow puppets, whereas the real game is somewhere else entirely. No, it's just even the super rich, the ultra rich. They're just as much a prisoner as we are. But they're just better off, right? They have the better cell. They get yard time a bit longer. They work in the laundry. It's all good. Better rations too. They get to smuggle in cigarettes.
Very nicely put.
Right. It's how it is. And sometimes
we're the surface dwellers, Mackie. When it comes down,
that's us. 100%. We are the surface dwellers. Those others are the trustees. Every prison has got trustees. They're prisoners that are trusted enough to guard other prisoners. And again, have privileges that come attached to it. Our entire view of life is built on a pyramidal structure of power. That's just the way we have been raised. There is no flat structure. There's no flat management. There's no flat leadership. Every form of leadership, any and every form of power that we know takes the shape of a pyramid. And with less and less power, of course, distributed to the base or bottom of the pyramid where the actual work happens. So that's the world we have accepted. That's the world that has been put in front of our eyes. That's the world we live and die in eventually as it happens. But it's not the way it was meant to be. Is this really life? Is this the life we want? Plato's cave allegory. I know I talk about it a lot, but it's such a beautiful thing. It's 2,500 years old. 2,500 years Plato thought about this, ago. 2,500. I mean, again, but why not? Of course. I mean, 2,500 years ago, people then were just as smart as they are today. They didn't know as much, but they were just as smart. And they could see the world for what it is. And there was a guy that broke out of the cave. You're probably all familiar with it, by the story. Just people bound, forced to watch the one side of the cave, and there would be shadows playing out what they think is life. One person got away, ran up to the top of the cave, got into the outside world, first time in the sun, was blinded, looks around, is amazed by what life actually is. Goes back into the cave, tries to tell all his buddies about it. You know what they do? They beat him to death. That's what they do. They beat him to death. Why? Because it's too much. It is too much information. Dave and I have been doing this for a long time. 8 years on the air, but we've been researching this for me and my case, I want to say over 40 years. Like I said, and for Dave, probably a similar length of time. As soon as you can start forming critical thoughts. And some kids are, faster than others. I think I was about 8, I want to say, when I got my first Charles Berlin's book. But the point is that we're all fed this life, which is not the true life. It's not what life was meant to be like, but we live it anyway, right? And we research, and I wish you guys would as well. But this has been going on forever. This is the longest con. This is a really important point we need to all understand. All of the institutions in our lives, the banks, or let's make it bigger, the money system, or the financial systems that we have in place, the governmental systems we have in place, okay? Even the religions we have in, and I'm not hating on any religion here in particular, and some of them started out right and tried to find the right thing, and then they were corrupted. But that's a different story yet again. They're all the longest cons that have been running on the human race. A long con is a con that is set up, takes a long time to set up, but once you've set it up, the payoff, it could be perpetual. It could be a perpetual payoff. The con just keeps going.
It's the long game.
It's the long game. We have been in this con for thousands of years. And I know I'm not overstating this, because that's what's happening here. Our money has no intrinsic value. Our government essentially is entirely corrupt and only governs for itself and for those in power. Do you really believe there's one set of laws for everybody? Really? There's this beautiful story recently. There was a lady, and I think she lied about her address. She was a homeless person, and she lied about her address so her child could go in a better school. In America, by the way, sorry. And she she got 5 years in prison, or some crazy thing like that, right? And there's another lady, a lot richer, and this is a case that has been in the news, and she's a famous actress, or I forget her name, I do apologize. But she essentially bribed or paid her children's way into college. And she got 14 days, was it, in prison, in the country prison or something like that? 14 days versus 5 years. Yeah, no, there's the same set of laws for everybody. BS. Gigantic BS.
Sure.
There isn't. There's varying degrees of applicability of laws for people. Okay? And I remember this as well. This is fascinating. Many years ago, in the early 90s, I was working at David Jones. David Jones is like a Bloomingdale's. So it's a department store, but it's a fairly posh department store, meaning it's a bit upmarket. So you have to wear a suit and a tie. So that's what I had to wear for work while I was at uni. So I had my shifts when I would go in Thursday nights on the weekend, and then just a normal uni kind of student for the rest of the time. But anyway, on a Thursday night, I would sometimes have to wear my suit to uni, because I just didn't have time to go home and change, because my shift would start at 4 or 3 or whatever, so I'd have to go straight to work. And in those days, it's astounding, people treated me very differently. I would go on the same cafeteria, get my same kind of meal, but the lady that might have served me the day before treated me with probably 1,000% more respect wearing a suit.
Because you're not wearing your sweatpants, or your,
there you go,
jeans.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's all about perceived power and status, right? If the status is real, even better for you, right? But this is where we are. We've been educated and indoctrinated to trust somebody in a white lab coat. We are indoctrinated and conditioned to trust or obey somebody in a uniform, for the most part. Okay, these are all conditionings we achieve, or that are achieved early in life. The Nazis, Mussolini, Franco, they all knew that you have to get to the children. They all started youth movements. They didn't do it, for the greater good of the youth. They did it to get. Same with the Chinese, by the way, right? They did it to get to the youth, or to the young when they're young. Yeah, that's right. The young. You have to get them when they're young. That's the only time it makes sense to get anybody to be indoctrinated into anything. They don't take people into the army after the age of 30. Why? Because you start critical thinking. I want you to go and do a bayonet charge on that hill. No, that's crazy. I get killed. Why would a bayonet charge the hill? Are you nuts?
Yeah,
Okay, where's the 19?
You do it if you want to so bad, and I'll wait for you.
Yeah, you go. You go to do it. Whereas a 19-year-old, an 18-year-old, or whatever it might be, even a 20-year-old go, yeah, full of testosterone. Yeah, I'm going to charge that hill and buy that. You know what? Just give me a wooden crate. That'll do. You keep the buying it. But this is
How high,
yeah. That's the reality of it. That's the world we inhabit. And now, like I said, when I started my round, we're hating on this girl Greta. We are now at a point, in my opinion, and I've looked at this very deeply, and I understand our shortcomings in this field very well, because I science a lot. We don't understand the full impact of everything that's happening, and that's every day, Dave. Every day when I switch on, maybe not every day, but certainly every week when I switch on the radio or the news or whatever it might be, there's some new thing. Oh, this is happening faster than we thought. Oh, our models didn't predict this. Oh, this is actually unexpected. Every time I hear something new in the climate arena, it's something like that. There are two things Dave and I have been saying, well, not just two, but these are two things that are very dear to my heart. One, Dave and I have always maintained that we can't capture the models accurately, and that climate change is much further progressed than we had thought. Not only that, the knock-on effects, the domino effects, if you will, are a lot more severe than we had thought, and completely unpredictable. The melting of the tundra. The undermelting, when I say the undermelting, is an ice sheet. So we're not just about the top side melting, but the underside.
Yeah, that's right.
Of the Greenland shelves. But not only that, there's other things as well. The decreased salination.
Outgassing of the tundra.
Outgassing. Yes, there's a bucket.
Sorry.
Yeah,
yep.
permafrost.
It keeps going, and the list is extensive.
Release of viruses, okay? The release of viruses, going into the jungles deeper, but also, viruses that have been frozen for thousands of years and things like that. The other thing, so that's one thing in the climate debate, which is so far, I mean, they're still talking about end of the century. We got to get realistic here, people. We're talking about the next few years. We are in it. Do you see the fires in the Amazon? Is anybody awake? Hello, Bueller. Anybody home, McFly? Hello,
McFly. Yeah.
Bueller.
Yeah, that's right.
Anybody?
So that's to a dead audience, right? Bueller.
Yeah.
But hello, McFly. Wake up, people.
Wake up. Sorry, I'm mixing movies here, but it's a popular media. You should know what I'm talking about. Mixing metaphors.
So, to make another point to that, I was watching David Attenborough discussing Greta's speech and the impacts, and he said that he's been watching social media attack this girl. Attack, not the message. There's a 50-50 whether people are going to listen to the message or not, and then the people who don't want to listen to the message have a further 50-50 choice of doing nothing about it or attacking the character of the girl.
Yeah.
I mean, why? What's the point? If you don't agree with it, turn it off. Don't watch it. Yeah. If you want your head in the sand, if you want to be an ostrich, go ahead. He said, but Australia is already seeing greater effect from climate change than any other continent.
Yeah.
And we keep telling you, year after year after year after year, we're telling you the same message, the same thing. And I've gone, my voice is hoarse from trying to, change someone's opinion on climate. And I know that if it's not directly affecting you, it's not real.
Yeah.
It
will.
That's it. But not only will it is.
Yeah.
And you're unwilling to see it. So when you can now have sun exposure in North America and be sunburnt to be required, hospitalization, there you go. That's number one, because it's probably never happened before. Yeah. I don't care if it's a little cooler this year or you get higher snowfall. Don't fall into the trap. It's just a trap to make you keep buying more coal. Right? Could you imagine, just for 1 minute, Mackie, could you imagine if if all of the politicized agendas came to fruition, for instance, if they all were able to be done. So suddenly there's nuclear power everywhere, but then we have no water to cool it down.
Yeah.
Then they all go into meltdown, right?
Yeah.
Think about the bad sides of the alternates. So, look, it's just I'm flabbergasted. I have to tell you that people are so willing to try to bring down the argument that she was making, and I said this on, I think it's the Sydney lawyers site group Facebook thing, that I said that all the children of the world should class action against their own government for inaction on climate change.
Yeah.
For the simple reason that the government would have to then disprove that climate change was occurring. Makes sense? So, because then they can get out of it going, well, it's not real. Yeah? And then, to put that, to have that read in the transcript.
Look, that's probably what it would take, because it's only a class action. I mean, only when you hurt the people that can make a difference. Mm-hmm. Only when you actually get their attention will you get their attention.
Because otherwise, it doesn't matter, because they're big coal puppets, right?
Who cares? Nobody gives a hoot. Nobody actually cares. Look what the Hong Kong people are doing for the last few months. You want change? Mm-hmm. You want change? No, I'm not condoning all the violence and all that, but I certainly applaud the result.
The right to protest.
And they've been doing it for months now.
Mm-hmm.
You want change? That's what you have to do. An afternoon on a Sunday afternoon, it's not really going to cut it. Or maybe even like a morning demonstration, then they go for a bit of a smashed avo lunch. not quite what it takes. But sorry, the second point I wanted to make about the things we've been mentioning is the age of humanity. It's being pushed back continuously since we started the show. And I remember this very vividly. One of the very first things we talked about, was ancient tech, ancient civilizations, pushing back the age of human habitation. We talked about impossible fossils. If you recall, we talked about finds, not just fossils, but artifacts that have been found in strata. Parts, 100%, which is out of which are objects out of
place artifacts
and time. Yeah, out of place artifact, exactly. So and we've talked about they exist. I mean, there they are, right? I mean, are all of them real? Maybe not. Some are hoaxes, surely. But guess what? Yet again, only one has to be real. Only one has to be real for the phenomenon to be a reality. And there are enough there now, to seriously question our understanding of what actually is happening or has happened on this planet. It's being pushed further and further back in every single arena of contention. The age of Göbekli Tepe is my prime example when it comes to cities and 12,000 years ago we have no idea who built it, but what is it? It's we don't know. It's a temple. The inhabitants or the habitation, I should say, of North America pushed back again a few thousand years. The age of human-like species or human species pushed back further yet again. And not just the age, but also, we mentioned this before as well, many years ago. We said the human tree, or the tree of our species is a lot more varied than we think it is. It's not just a single Homo sapiens kind of thing. No. And now we know this is a fact. There are at least 5 or 6 others that we know of, potentially more, species of Homo sapiens, meaning we can interbreed with them, that existed and may still exist, but certainly have existed. Okay, that's a fact, and that's happening all the time. The more and more we know, the more and more. You know what's funny? The more and more we get along here, and the more people learn, the more science advances, the more fall in line with the things that you and I are saying.
That's
it's
right.
Hilarious, and not just us. Yeah. Other researchers, Lloyd Pye, Jim Mars, okay. Charles Berlitz, even Eric von Däniken with all his craziness, David Icke, okay, all of these things are being proven out.
Do you know what?
ASJ
Imagine if they were all real. All of them were real.
Yeah. I know. 394 SJ 394.
That's right.
But yeah, it's insane. It's insane. And so my point, the final point I'd like to make, then we have some really interesting news items to share with you, is we really have to pull ourselves up out of the mud. There's this legendary character in German fiction, Baron von Münchhausen. You might have, he's called the Great Liar or the Great Lying Baron.
Baron von Munchausen.
That's him, yeah. And he fell into a swamp in a horse. So what he had to do when he fell into it, he had to pull himself out by his bootstraps. He pulled himself out of the swamp by his own bootstraps. So he lifted himself. He's also the guy that wrote a Cannonball. That's the guy. Tall Tales. But guess what? We have to achieve the impossible, or learn with we have to learn to live with the consequences. If we cannot make a change, which is my belief, I think well past midnight here. And the there goes the last train. I missed it. Hot dog. I can still see the red tail light. If only I had run a little bit faster. So if we can't make a change, and it's my contention, unless something drastic happens, we cannot, then we have to start learning to live with what's to come and what's already happening. We have to learn to live with it. Okay? We have to learn to live in the new world. Because it's not going to be destroyed. It's just going to be different. Anyway.
Difference the message right there. And weirdly enough, there's a segue in all of that. And that is we have to learn to live with what we've got. To live with the news. To live with it, whatever's going on. And my segue to my news point here was, and I've already done Meme of the Week, because that was the book burning one, showing all the Facebook and YouTube and Twitter accounts being closed. Why? Because they didn't like what people said. That's all it is. So that's equivalent to, that's a today's book burning right there. But my point here is, this week impeachment came up and people are going crazy for it, and there was some backwards and forwards and some Trump owning the story and having the Ukrainian Prime Minister talking about what the call was about, and the transcript was released and all of that really cool stuff. And so Trump said, and from Trump's own words, he said, I was just wanting him to follow up this news that I heard that was going on, right? So was Joe Biden, was this stuff really going on? So across the fence, hearing that question, you would ask your own people, is this stuff really going on? And then you would get back, the two leaders would talk to each other and go, well, from what I've heard, it may very well be going on. That's really all there was. There was nothing all on this, because for the last 3 years, they've been talking about trying to impeach the president. For some, whatever reason, way, it doesn't matter. They're just looking for something. They're scratching at the surface, trying to get something out of it. And in the end, this is what they end up with, a transcript talking to someone and go, oh, look, that's against the law. That's against the rules. Can't do that. Without knowing the context and without listening to the entire conversation, it's being misquoted, right? Same deal. And then I've been watching this whole process and the impeachment discussions themselves, where they've made up and paraphrased Trump's words so poorly that the guy discussing this to the media had to admit that he'd made it up. Yeah, I made up those words, that what I said in this press conference wasn't real. I said it, I'm going to say it 7 times, so I need you to listen. That wasn't a quote. You heard that too, right, Mickey?
Yeah.
That was not a quote. That was him just being funny, he said. He was making fun of it. Well, that's not how you start an impeachment process for that. But it was just watching the entire thing was like watching someone who was going to be an astronaut at NASA go into G-lock in their simulator. When they spin them round and round and round and round and go up to like 8 Gs and then they pass out?
Yeah.
That's what that was like. It was painful. I didn't want to watch this guy making an idiot of himself. And there he goes, right? I threw my coaster at the television. There's your sign. Sorry, I'm stealing someone's bit when I do that. Look, surely they can't wait until next year when they can just vote him out. It's taken them 3 years. 3 years to come up with something good enough to be able to do it, and then they completely make it, well, I was going to say schmozzle of it. They ruined their ability to do it by making a parody of it. Yeah?
Yeah.
And that destroys it. So, look, have they now handed him the win next year? Because now they all look completely ridiculous?
Yeah.
Have they tried too hard and then ruined it for themselves, Maggie? That's my question, right? Oh my God. I like that SJ's written. Impeachment agaza. Like an extravaganza, right? Very funny.
Yeah.
Nice one, SJ. And back to you in the studio, Mickey.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were making more points because you're flowing so nicely. Yeah, no, look, that's true. But what Dave just referred to here as well is, of course, the chat room, and we've got a whole bunch of people in there. SJ just made that comment, so thanks, SJ. Appreciate that. And just to reiterate, if you are listening to this maybe on YouTube or in the archives, come and listen live and come into the chat room as well. It's easy to find on the page. Revolution.radio is actually a chat that links you to another chat forum, right? So it's actually outside the webpage. It's really cool. It works really well.
Well, now it's a forum within it, Mickey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
It's fun. It's fun. Participate. And this is really where this is a bit different, right? And you tell us we got rocks in our heads right away. You don't have to, write an angry letter to the FAA.
Okay, quit the hate mail. Just
quit the hate mail. But look, it's a sad state of affairs to see it all develop, and it's really not. I'm not encouraged by what I'm seeing. That I look at our politicians, and they're not statesmen or women. They're just politicians. They're not, they're not great leaders anymore in this world. They really aren't. I haven't seen anyone in a long time, and usually it's a crisis that sparks great leadership. Like a real crisis, like world wars or massive natural disasters. Great leaders can emerge out of that crucible, but haven't really seen any great leaders. And for the most part, it's our system. Our system doesn't work. Our system doesn't encourage the long-term view.
It doesn't
say
encourage
what you want about
greatness to succeed.
No, absolutely not. What it encourages is scrambling for power and making as much money as you can for yourself. That's what it encourages. And if you look at the Chinese, love them or hate them, at least they've got 10, 15-year, 20-year plans. And the reason they have it is because there aren't really any free elections, right? This is you're stuck with. These are the people leading you. Now, is that a good thing? Not necessarily. But and certainly quite a few people are suffering as well. But if you wanted to achieve something long-term, that's how you have to do it. That's what it takes. I've told the story before. I will just very briefly tell again. Pericles, Athens, 2,500 years ago, or oddly, or thereabouts anyway. Athenians thinking, oh man, Athens is really going to the dogs, need someone to help us here. Pericles, come on. Pericles, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But I'm in charge and you can't do anything against me. And I'm the final authority, everything. So he was, and he did. And 30 years of prosperity reigned in Athens during the Periclean age.
Wow.
A lot of public works. He encouraged trade. He did, he did a lot for the people in general. He built a whole bunch of stuff. He did, and it took this one strong person with the vision and leadership, Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, right? The other leaders, of course, you had Adenauer after Germany's defeat in World War II. And again, with George Washington, even Lincoln after the Civil War. Not that he got a lot out of it afterwards, but the point is that it takes great leadership to give a nation direction, right? You need, or people, any people need direction. Right? You need good leadership. You need someone that actually cares, and not just about themselves and enriching themselves. I mean, look at the scandals everywhere in every part of the world.
Yeah,
billions of dollars are being embezzled. Billions of dollars are coming across into into the private coffers from public funds. It's horrendous the amount of money that is being embezzled and fraudulently obtained by those in power. But even afterwards, these people they're set. They are set. Once you're a politician, in Parliament or in Congress or whatever your particular system might be, that's it for life. For life.
Oh, you can get an executive appointment somewhere, or you can be on multiple boards.
The Clintons and the Bushes, they're traveling together. Okay, from junket to junket. The Bush Senior, Bush Junior, and Clinton, they were traveling together because that's what happened. They're part of the same club. People.
That's right.
It's funny, right?
You have to forget that they're opposition.
Yeah.
When they leave, doesn't matter anymore.
They're only in opposition to you, the people. That's the only opposition they have. You. Okay. Oh, those useless eaters. What do we do with them? We're just going to give them. In Australia, they gave us some years ago $2,000. Like everybody got $2,000. Here you go, $2,000. And go and buy a big screen TV.
So we all did.
Bread. Yes, so we did. Bread and games. Bread and games. The Romans had it right. Okay, they know exactly what was going on. You give the people something to eat, and you give them entertainment. You can sit back and do whatever you want. King and Kodos. I remember that Simpsons meme. King and Kodos. There's no real choice.
You have to vote for one of us.
Do you know a better way of exchanging a long string of proteins? If you can, I'd like to hear it. They're holding hands.
That's when they're holding hands in public. That's right. That's very funny.
Look, it is funny, but this is where we are.
Truth.
It's a truth. It's
a truth.
and all the stuff that we're seeing now, all the video evidence. Again, if 99% of all the things we see that are anomalous are hoaxes, then that's okay. That's fine. People are busy, don't be doing whatever. But there's 1% that is not. 0.00. Even if it's just like I said before, only the one that is true, the one phenomenon, then we know everything is not how it should be. There is a whole world out there which we don't know, and we choose not to know it. We choose not to know it. I'm astounded. I mean, you can't have conversations anymore with anyone these days. You can't talk about religion. You can't talk about politics. Okay, these are out. You can't really talk about anything else, philosophy, climate change, none of that, because everybody is so entrenched in their views. It doesn't matter if they're wrong or right, but that's bad. When I look at these atheists as well, right? Dawkins, he's my favorite. And you have to be dogmatic. Richard Dawkins is the most dogmatic person I know. He doesn't leave any room for error. He goes, nah, it's all nonsense. There's no such thing as God and spirituality. Nah, blah blah blah. Wow, really? You are that sure? That's astounding. Because I don't know anyone that's that sure. In fact, how could you be? Because you're not all powerful. You're not all knowing. How can you tell me there is no spiritual? Am I saying that all the religions are good? No. In fact, in my opinion, do away with religions.
Yeah.
Do away with it. Spirituality and faith are very important, yeah. But religions, do away with it. Good riddance. Yeah. But that's not the point here, right? The point here is there is more to us than just being flesh robots. Much more, right? We are not just
on this planet at this time. That's all. That's the only choice we have.
So it seems.
But Mickey, I'm on public transport, right? And I'm looking at people, and they're so buried in their devices that it looks like they're being hypnotized.
They are. They should do a brainwave measurement when they're doing that.
Oh yeah.
That's what we should.
But they're being filled with inherited opinion.
100%. Yep.
And that's why we can't have a conversation about anything with anybody, because of the inherited opinion that they've been hypnotized to believe. And you can't say, look, here's object A and here's minus A and plus A. Here's two different viewpoints on the same thing. Which do you think would be the most likely? And tell me why you think that. They'll quote someone else's words and immediately have a reaction which is an abnormally strong reaction to it.
Correct.
How is that?
Correct.
How did you do that? What happened in a conversation where you needed to yell at me and curse at me for even questioning in the first place?
Oh, don't you know? Shut up!
Shut up!
Shut up,
Just shut up, man.
Yeah.
All I'm going to say is these exits are painted on.
Oh, well, now you tell me.
Right? They see what looks like something and they don't understand what it truly is.
That's a beautiful segue into our break, by the way. So I want you guys to just sit back for a second and think about that for a second. Just think about that. We are living in a world of optical and mental illusions. That's what we are, right? Some of them we have created for ourselves, which is fine. They're called filters. Others are given to us. That's called indoctrination. But these are all illusions. Illusions of stability, illusions of religion and spiritual freedom, political freedom, right? And sometimes you look at things and they're not there, and sometimes they are there, but you choose to ignore them. And you see something that's weird, and you try to forget that as quickly as possible. I've spoken to so many people. And come back after the break. We're going to talk about reincarnation. Thanks, guys. Donate if you can.
You're back with David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com on the #1 listener-supported talk radio on the net. So push the donate button or subscribe to the archives for only $5 US a month. It's pretty cheap. It's around about a coffee or less than a coffee. I have a triple shot coffee. You can probably tell. And they cost $5.95 in Australia. And that happens to be the exact cost of a triple shot coffee. If you're new to Shiny Side Out, we welcome you aboard. We advise you that this is a tinfoil hat zone. So keep your arms and legs within the vehicle. Becky, is that not right? And,
that's correct.
And what is the device they must turn off?
It's your own personal reality discombobulator.
Discombobulator.
It's always called something else, Dave. It's always something else.
It is always something else. And there's no flash photography either. So we're glad you're with us and that you're on board. And so we ask you to follow, subscribe, or otherwise on the appropriate platform. Thank you very much for being here and inviting us into your lives. How unsincere was that? You know what? I'm just going to say it again. We're really happy you're with us, so thank you. And in a true Simpsons style, and just a message to everyone, we love you all. This is show number 394, and we're talking about
300.
We're talking about Deja Vu and Reincarnation. This is part 2 of that show arc or series, if you like. It's been built upon since the first time we put it out there, which was all way back in show 35, and then back in the hundreds, and now in the 300s. Goodness me, 300s. And we're going to ask you also to get yourself some great merchandise from the station, from the website, and you can get seed packs and EMP-proof thumb drives. There's a whole bunch of things on there to get. So if you don't feel like you want access to the archives, then purchase something from the station. It also helps.
Correct.
And which brings us the intro.
That's it. That's the intro. Yeah, Becky. Hey, signpost. We're hitting you in the head. No, look. Yes. Look. What we shared with you last week was that reincarnation is quite pervasive across all cultures and peoples. We're going to continue that showcase today, and hopefully have time to get into some of the really interesting scientific, in fact we can, of course we will very shortly get into some of the really interesting scientific researches and investigations that have been undertaken by two main proponents, but we'll get to those guys in due course. However, let's quickly finish off our showcasing that reincarnation truly is a global phenomenon, or the belief in it, I should say. Celtic paganism. In the 1st century BCE, which is before the Common Era, Alexander Cornelius Polystor wrote the following: "The Pythagorean doctrine prevails among the Gaul's teaching that the souls of men are immortal, and that after a fixed number of years they will enter into another body. Julius Caesar recorded that the Druids of Gaul, Britain, and Ireland had metempsychosis as one of their core doctrines, which is really another fancy word for incarnation. The principal point of their doctrine is that the soul does not die and that after death it passes from one body into another. The main object of all education is, in their opinion, to imbue their scholars with a firm belief in the indestructibility of the human soul, which, according to their belief, merely passes at death from one tenement to another. For by such doctrine alone, they say, which robs death of all its terrors, can the highest form of human courage be developed. Dave?
Absolutely. Hang on. There we go. So, Native American nations. Reincarnation is an intrinsic part of many Native American and Inuit traditions. In the now heavily Christian polar north, now mainly parts of Greenland and Nunavut, the concept of reincarnation is enshrined in the Inuit language. The following is a story of human-to-human reincarnation as told by Thundercloud, a Winnebago shaman referred to as TC in the narrative. Here, TC talks about his 2 previous lives and how he died and came back again to this, his 3rd lifetime. He describes his time between lives when he was blessed by the Earthmaker and all of the abiding spirits and given special powers including the ability to heal the sick. TC's account of his 2 reincarnations. I, that's my ghost, was taken to the place where the sun sets, the west. While at that place, I thought I would come back to Earth again, and the old man with whom I was staying said to me, "My son, did you not speak about wanting to go to the Earth again?" I had, as a matter of fact, only thought of it, yet he knew what I wanted. Then he said to me, "You can go, but you must ask the chief first." Then I went and told the chief of the village of my desire, and he said to me, "You may go and obtain your revenge upon those who killed your relatives and you." Then I was brought down to Earth. There I lived until I died of old age, and I was lying in my grave. Someone said to me, "Come, let us go away." So then we went towards the setting sun, the setting of the sun. There we came to a village where we met all the dead. From that place I came to this earth again for the 3rd time, and here I am. Meki. So touching, Meki's silent.
Sorry, I was speaking into my muted microphone, which is never a good idea if you're on live radio. But that's another proof here that we are on live radio and not some crisis actor in the Montana mountain bunkers. No, but not true, not true. No, I didn't tell them anything.
We're delineating the sincerity again of that beautiful message from TC.
I know. No, but look,
we'll fix it in post.
So we've shared. We fix it in post. We've shared with you a variety of cultures that have this fairly fundamental belief in reincarnation. But what we haven't looked at yet is the reasons why reincarnation could or should occur. I will give you the reasons that people have come up with up to this point and some others. And eventually, especially once we start talking about the hypothesis, show number 400, I will tell you why I think we are caught in the cycle of reincarnation. But Hindus provide for instance, several reasons why the jiva, which is the atman or the soul, takes on various physical bodies. Firstly, to experience the fruits of one's karmas. This is the main reason for rebirth. Sattvika, good or righteous karmas, reward one with the pleasures of svarga. Rajas, pleasure-seeking karmas, reward one with mrutyuloka, mortal realm on earth. And tamas karmas, action related to inertia, laziness, and evil, condemn one to patala loka. Dave?
Oh, good on you. To satisfy one's desires, when a person indulges in material pleasures, he or she subsequently develops a stronger desire to enjoy more of it. That's vasana. This unending craving to satisfy one's desires causes the jiva to assume new physical bodies.
We'll talk about those after we finish.
We'll talk about the pronunciations of those later too.
No. You did well. You did very well. I don't know how I did, but you did very well.
No,
to complete one's unfinished sadhana, when an aspirant making spiritual efforts for liberation from Maya dies without attaining his or her goal, the jiva gets as a natural cause effect another human body to complete its sadhana.
Number 4. To fulfill a debt. When a jiva is indebted to another jiva, it gets a human birth to fulfill its debt and receive what is owed to it. The jiva comes in the form of a relative, friend, or an enemy.
The 5th reason is to undergo sufferings because of a great soul's curse. A person's grave error or sin may incur the wrath or displeasure of God or a rishi. This results in the jiva of that person getting another birth, not necessarily into a human body.
To attain moksha, by the grace and compassion of God or a God-realized guru, a jiva gets a human body to purge itself of the layers of basic instincts.
Yeah. So, for the most part, it is really interesting to understand that Charles Dickens, in A Christmas Carol, makes use of this concept. You're saying, what? That's nonsense. I know the Christmas Carol. It's nothing to do with reincarnation.
Bah humbug.
Bear with me. Bah humbug. That's right. When I think it's Morley. Is it Morley? His friend that passed? Visits Ebenezer Scrooge as the first ghost, as it were, that night. He comes so clad in chains, weighed down, and Scrooge asks him, Morley, what are these chains all around you? Well, these are the chains I forged for myself in life by, all the riches he attained and the things that chain him to the earth. So this is the very same principle here. While Dickens doesn't go as far as suggesting reincarnation, he does go as far as suggesting that desires, especially material desires, chain us to this place. At this point of my research, I completely and unequivocally agree with that assessment, that this desire, especially material desire, will chain us to this world. Letting go is the key. Letting go of your desires is the key. I know there is. Let's have a look at science for a second here. This is the scientific review, and I just want to share that with you, and then Dave is going to share with you the reincarnation research by the psychiatrist Ian Stevenson, which I think is fascinating. Reincarnation does not only occur in nations where people have a history of accepting reincarnation, like India, Sri Lanka, Turkey, Lebanon, Thailand, and Myanmar. Research have found cases on all continents except Antarctica. There's a shock. In fact, the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia has investigated more than 3,000 cases of people worldwide who remember their previous lives. The founder and director was Dr. Ian Stevenson, which Dave is going to go into some more detail in just a moment. When he retired in 1996, Dr. Jim Tucker took over as the leader of the division's past life research, and we will talk about Dr. Tucker in due course as well. In 2008, Tucker published a review of an investigation by his predecessor into the cases that seemed to point to reincarnation. Stevenson, when he was chairman of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia, worked on a review of 44 cases of individuals who had reported memories of previous lives, which was published before 1960. While he was working on his review, he heard about other cases and took a trip to India and Sri Lanka, where he investigated a number of cases. Stevenson came to the conclusion that the phenomenon of people who remember their past lives was much more common than anyone had realized. Researchers had found several common threads running through these cases. Usually, it's young children who remember they have been someone else. This happens typically around the age of 2 or 3. The memory is spontaneous and doesn't seem to be triggered by anything in the current family. Interestingly, the researchers found that there is an average of only 16 months between birth and the current life and the death of the previous personality. In the majority of cases, about 70%, the death involved unnatural circumstances like violence or drowning, which in my opinion is one of the trigger events necessary for you to remember your past life. I think the trauma lets you remember it somehow. There's something in the mechanism which is... Anyway. If these children who usually stop making past life statements by age 6 or 7 can remember details about their previous life circumstances like an address or names or family numbers, people have often gone and followed it up. Regularly, they find that the details can indeed be confirmed. Dave?
Absolutely. Reincarnation research. Psychiatrist Ian Stevenson has devoted the last 40 years to the scientific documentation of past life memories of children from all over the world. He has over 3,000 cases in his files. Many people, including skeptics and scholars, agree that these cases offer the best evidence yet for reincarnation. Dr. Stevenson's credentials are impeccable. He is a medical doctor and had many scholarly papers to his credit before he began paranormal research. He is the former head of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Virginia, and now is the director of the Division of Personality Studies at the University of Virginia, same place. He conducted more than 3,000 case studies over a period of 40 years and published 12 books, including, and I'm going to read 2 of them, 20 cases suggestive of reincarnation and Where Reincarnation and Biology Intersect. Stevenson methodically documented each child's statements and then identified the deceased person the child identified with and verified the facts of the deceased person's life that matched the child's memory. He also matched birthmarks and birth defects to wounds and scars on the deceased, verified by medical records such as autopsy photographs. In Reincarnation and Biology, that was from. Stevenson searched for disconfirming evidence and alternative explanations for the reports and believed that his strict methods ruled out all possible normal explanations for the child's memories. However, a significant majority of Stevenson's reported cases of reincarnation originated in Eastern societies where dominant religions often permit the concept of reincarnation. Following this type of criticism, Stephen published a book on European cases of the reincarnation type. I like how it's worded in a particular way. Maybe it's a direct translation. Other people who have undertaken reincarnation research include Jim B. Tucker, Satwant Pashricha, Goodwin Samararatan, oh, I can't say that word, Erlinder Haraldson. Skeptics such as Paul Edwards have analysed many of these accounts and called them anecdotal. while also suggesting that claims for evidence for reincarnation originate from selective thinking and from false memories that often result from one's own belief systems and basic fears, and thus cannot be counted as empirical evidence. Carl Sagan referred to examples apparently from Stevenson's investigations in his book The Demon Haunted World as an example of carefully collected imperial data, though he rejected reincarnation as a, what's that word? Parsimonious. Parsimonious explanation for the stories. Objection to claims of reincarnation include the facts that the vast majority of people who do not remember previous lives, and there is no mechanism known to modern science that would enable a personality to survive death and travel to another body. Researchers such as Stevenson have acknowledged these limitations. Do you know what, Mickey? Just before, I suppose we have some examples. I think we should go through those. Yeah.
But look, the key thing here is to and this is really important. That's why this is here. The evidence, the very nature of the evidence that's being collected is anecdotal, because I challenge anybody out there to come up with an empirical methodology to collect this information. This is where, in my opinion, empirical science breaks down. We need a new way of looking at this and a new way of investigating these phenomena. We can't just this is not a repeatable thing. This is when, as soon as you start something that is not physical, right, in its nature, as soon as you start something, that can't be measured and picked up and weighed and dissected and repeated in an experiment, you run into problems. And the problem, of course, is that the critique here is, it cannot be counted as empirical evidence. Okay, and parsimonious explanation for the stories. Well, it's a little condescending of Sagan to say that, right? Because if you say that, fine, then give me a better explanation. Give me a better explanation. Don't just say that my explanation is the wrong one, right? When clearly something is happening here, and we don't really know what the mind is in the first place. We don't even know if there's a soul or not. We have really no way to empirically measure any of this, Dave.
Yeah, that's right. So when I've watched skeptics from Skeptic magazine, but the author of Skeptic magazines, or the whatever it is, the owner or whatever, the editor, when I've seen him attempt to debunk something, it doesn't come from the comparison of the information with the current. It either comes from character assassination or a question about a third party article of something that's not related to it. Like, something that's hot. Oh, the sun's hot, but that doesn't mean the sun is one of those. Right? Does it make sense? Yeah. It's so stupid. It doesn't make any sense that they're basing an argument for only truly stupid people to believe his version is sensible. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I'm seeing. So if a child, for instance, in one of these examples, when you hear one of these examples that's coming up, I just want to set the premise here. Think about the skeptics trying to discount it from the outset because they don't believe it's real. So they're trying to cherry pick something in it that doesn't seem like it should be valid, and then that's going to be the all covering blanket that silences it. Yeah. So whether it's character assassination or I just simply don't believe it, or I'm using a third-party argument against it. But honestly, if you had them on air and you would ask, well, then how would a child have been able to guess 10 points that have been validated, that's the only combination of those points to a last life, and they were all 100% spot on? Tell me, because that if you're saying it's just random, then I think you should just walk away having acknowledged that it's real. You can't discount it. It's impossible. It's like having the luck virus and guessing tomorrow night's lotto draw.
Well, you don't have it? Oh, sorry, buddy.
Oh, there's positive viruses and negative viruses from Red Dwarf. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, Mickey, why don't you run with the first one?
Yeah. Let's go through. Look, there's some examples here we've compiled, and they're all from the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia. That's that's Dr. Stevenson's group here. And for 45 years, it's been running for longer than 45 years. The first case here is Ruth Simmons. One of the best-known reincarnation stories is that of Ruth Simmons. In 1952, she underwent a series of hypnosis sessions during which her therapist, Maury Bernstein, regressed her back to her birth. She suddenly started to speak with a heavy Irish accent and remembered many specific details from her life as Bridie Murphy, who had lived in Belfast, Ireland in the 19th century. Not many of the things she mentioned could be verified. However, she recalled two people from whom she used to buy her food, a Mr. John Carrigan and a Mr. Farr. The town directory for 1865 to 1866 lists the two individuals as grocers. That particular story is shown in a film from 1956 called The Search for Bridie Murphy.
Wow. Edward Austrian, I suppose I would pronounce it like that. Patricia Austrian's 4-year-old son, Edward, had a phobia of drizzly grey days. Then he developed a problem with his throat and started to complain of severe pain. Whenever he had a sore throat, he said that his shot was hurting. Edward told his mother very detailed stories about his previous life in the trenches in what was apparently World War I. He told her that he had been shot in the throat and killed. At first, the doctors could not find any cause for his sore throat and removed his tonsils as a precautionary measure. A cyst developed in his throat and the doctors did not know how to treat it. As soon as Edward was prompted to tell his parents and others more about his previous life and talk about how he was killed, the cyst disappeared. Edward's doctors never found out why the cyst had vanished.
Yeah, and you find, and as we go through these stories more and more, you will find physical manifestations of previous life trauma in the current body, birthmarks, things like that, as well as a psychological, I guess, a mark, psychological marks, like things like, being afraid of heights or such, that reflect a certain trauma in previous lives. And the next one is Gus Taylor. And this is subtitled, Who's Your Grandfather? Gus Taylor was 18 months old when he started to say that he was his own grandfather. Young children can be confused about their own identity and those of their family members, but this was different. His grandfather had died a year before Gus was born, and the boy totally believed they were the same person. When shown some family photographs, Gus identified Grandpa Augie when he was 4 years old. There was a family secret that nobody had ever spoken about in front or around Gus. Augie's sister had been murdered and dumped in the San Francisco Bay. The family were perplexed when the 4-year-old child started to talk about his dead sister. According to Gus, God gave him a ticket after he died. With this ticket, he was able to travel through a hole, after which he came back to life as Gus.
Wow. Oh. Bringing out the family secret can't be good. At least you're not working for the Clintons. The case of Imad Alawar. 5-year-old Imad Alawar from Lebanon started talking about his life in a nearby village. The first 2 words he spoke as a child were the names Jamila and Mahmoud. And at the age of 2, he stopped stranger outside and told him they had been neighbours. The child and his parents were investigated by Dr. Ian Stevenson. Imad made over 55 different claims about his previous life. The family visited the village that the boy had spoken of, together with Stevenson, and found the house where he claimed that he lived. Imad and his family were able to positively identify 13 facts and memories that were confirmed as being accurate. Imad recognized his previous uncle, Mahmoud. and his mistress from a former life, Jamila, from photographs. He was able to remember where he had kept his gun, a fact verified by others, and was able to have a chat with a stranger about their experiences during their army days. In total, 51 out of 57 of the experiences and places mentioned by Imad were verified during the visit. It doesn't say that 6 of them weren't. It just means that they hadn't come across people who could verify those.
Quite possibly. But even 51 out of 57 is a highly statistically significant result.
Absolutely.
If you do like statistics. Cameron Macaulay was born in Glasgow, Scotland. Since the age of 2, he told his mother he was from an island called Barra off the west coast of Scotland. He talked about a white house and a beach on which planes landed. He had a black and white dog, and his dad's name was Shane Robertson. He was killed by a car. He drew the white house by the beach and complained of missing his other mother. As the child got more and more upset about missing Barra, his mother took him on a visit to the island, which was an hour-long flight away. The plane landed on the beach. The family found a white house owned by the Robertsons, and the black and white dog was in one of their family photographs, along with a car that Cameron had remembered. However, nobody recalled Shane. Cameron knew his way around the White House and was able to point all its peculiarities. As he grew older, Cameron slowly lost his memories, but he's still convinced that death is not the end. Like Gus Taylor, he stated that he ended up in his mother's tummy after he fell through a hole. The story was picked up by British television, making the Barra case one of the best documented reincarnation stories ever.
Pramod Sharma. Pramod Sharma was born in India in 1944. When he reached the age of 2, he told his mother that his wife in Moradabad could cook for him, so she did not have to. Moradabad was 145 kilometers or 90 miles away from his birthplace. Bishwali, between the ages of 3 and 4, Pramod described a business venture called Mohan Brothers, where he had worked with family members, selling cookies and water. He built miniature shops and served his family mud cookies and water. He had been a well-off tradesman and complained about the financially less rosy situation of his current family. Why are we so poor, mother? He advised his parents against eating curd and would not touch it himself. He said that he had become very ill after eating it in his old life. Pramod hated being submerged in a bath and told his parents that he had died in a bathtub. Pramod's parents promised to take him to Moradabad once he learned to read. It turned out there was a family by the name of Mehra that had run a soda and cookie shop called Mohan Brothers. Manager Parmanand Mehra had died in 1943 after gorging on curd and suffering from a gastrointestinal illness and peritonitis, from which he had eventually died. Oh, I was going to say eventually not recovered from. Paramand had tried medicinal baths as a cure and had been given a bath very shortly before his death. Mickey, do you know, all I'm getting is flashbacks to me driving a car and having a car accident.
I know. It's
crazy.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It is. I do have to find someone who can do regression. Anyway, that's me. John and Florence Pollock were devastated when their twin daughters, Joanna and Jacqueline, died in a car accident on May 5, 1957. The following year, they were thrilled to hear they were expecting, and once again, Florence was carrying twins. The twins, Jillian and Jennifer, were born identically except for Jennifer's birthmarks. She had a birthmark on her waist, similar to a birthmark Jacqueline had, and a birthmark on her forehead that resembled one of Jacqueline's scars. John and Florence moved away from their old home when their daughters were 3 months old. John and Florence told Gillian and Jennifer very little about their late sisters, but the girls seemed to share Joanna's and Jacqueline's memories. They would request old toys that had belonged to the deceased twins, recognize landmarks when traveling to their parents' former home, and were inexplicably terrified of cars. Upon seeing oncoming traffic, they would shriek, "The car's coming to get us. The car is coming to get us." Luckily, by the age of 5, these frightening memories mostly faded away. The girls went on to live relatively normal adult lives. However, their story is still frequently cited as evidence of reincarnation.
An elderly man shocked archaeologists with his knowledge of an ancient city. For his entire life, Arthur Flowerdew was haunted with inexplicable and vivid memories of a city surrounded by a desert and a temple carved into a cliff. One day, while watching a BBC documentary on television, he saw the city of Petra in Jordan. To his amazement, the city matched the one in his head. After Flowerdew shared his story with several people, BBC reporters contacted him asking to put his story on television. Several archaeologists flew Petra with Flowerdew. He recognized landmarks with ease, including sites that had not yet been excavated. When presented with an ancient device, the purpose of which had baffled scholars for years, he offered a plausible explanation regarding its use. After seeing a guard station, Flowerdew recalled that he had died there when he was stabbed with a spear. The experts who accompanied Flowerdew believed his claims of reincarnation, doubting someone would be able to fake or fabricate the breadth of knowledge he displayed. Flowerdew maintained he had never studied the city previously and only heard of it upon seeing it on television. While Flowerdew could possibly have withheld information regarding his education, many believe this is a true reincarnation story. Not uncarnation, incarnation.
Fascinating. Mummy, I'm so homesick. This is the next case. Among the UVA case studies, University of Virginia, of course, is the story of an Oklahoma boy named Ryan. A few years ago, many years ago now, the 4-year-old woke up screaming at 2 in the morning. Over the preceding months, he'd been pleading with his bewildered mother, Cindy, to take him to the house where he'd lived before. In tears, he begged her to return him to his glittering life in Hollywood, complete with a big house, a pool, and fast cars. "That was so fabulous," he once said. "I can't live in these conditions. My last home was much better." When Cindy went into her son's room that night, Ryan kept repeating the same words, "Mommy, I'm so homesick," as she tried to comfort him and rock him to sleep. He was like an old man who couldn't remember all the details of his life. He was so frustrated and sad, Cindy said. The next morning, she went to the library, borrowed a pile of books about old Hollywood, and brought them home. With Ryan in her lap, Cindy went through the volumes. She was hoping the pictures might soothe him. Instead, he became more and more excited as they looked at one particular book. When they came to a still of a scene from a 1932 movie called Night After Night, he stopped her. "Mama!" he shouted, pointing to one of the actors, who wasn't identified. "That guy's me, the old me." "I was shocked," Cindy admits. "I never thought that we'd find the person he thought he was." But she was equally relieved. Ryan had talked about his other life and had been so unhappy, and now we had something to go on. Although neither Cindy nor her husband believed in reincarnation, she went back to the library the next day and checked out a book about children who possessed memories of their past lives. At the end of it was a note from the author, Professor Jim Tucker, MD, saying that he wanted to hear from the parents of kids with similar stories. Cindy sat down to write him a letter.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I know.
The Ghost Hunters. Dr. Tucker was a child psychiatrist, as we've just found out, in a private practice where he heard about the reincarnation research being conducted by Ian Stevenson, MD, founder and director of the Division of Perceptual Studies at UVA. He was intrigued and began working with the division in 1996. 6 years later, when Dr. Stevenson retired, Dr. Tucker took over as the leader of the division's past life research. The UVA team has gathered more than 2,500 documented cases of children from all over the world who have detailed memories of former lives, including that of a California toddler with a surprisingly good golf swing who said he had once been legendary athlete Bobby Jones, a Midwestern 5-year-old who shared, and another one, shared some of the same memories and physical traits: blindness in his left eye, a mark on his neck, a limp as long as a long deceased brother, and a girl in India who woke up one day and began speaking fluently in a dialect she'd never heard before. Dr. Tucker describes these cases in his book, Return to Life: Extraordinary Cases of Children Who Remember Their Past Lives. The children in the UVA collection typically began talking about their previous lives when they were 2 or 3 years old and stopped by the age of 6 or 7. That is around the same time that we all lose our memories of early childhood, Dr. Tucker says. When he first learns about a subject, he checks for fraud, deliberate or unconscious, by asking 2 questions. Do the parents seem credible? And could the child have picked up the memories through TV, overheard conversations, or other ordinary means? If he can rule out the fraud, he has his team interview the child and his family, or her family, to get a detailed account about the previous life. Then the researchers try to find a deceased person whose life matches the memories. This last part is essential because otherwise the child's story would just be fantasy. Close to 3/4 of the cases investigated by the team are solved, meaning that a person from the past matching the child's memories is identified. In addition, nearly 20% of the kids in UVA cases have naturally occurring marks or impairments that match the scars and injuries on the past person. One boy who recalled being shot possessed 2 birthmarks, a large, ragged one over his left eye and a small, round one on the back of his head, which lined up like a bullet's entrance and exit wounds. In the case of Ryan, the boy longing for a Hollywood past, an archivist pored over books in a film library until she found a person who appeared to be the man he'd singled out, Hollywood agent Martin, who made an unbilled cameo in Night After Night. After Cindy spoke to Dr. Tucker, he interviewed Ryan, and then the family contacted Martin's daughter, still alive. She met with Dr. Tucker, Ryan and Cindy, and along with public records, she confirmed more than 50 details that Ryan had reported about her father's life. From his work history to the location and contents of his home, Cindy felt tremendous relief when she was told that her son's story matched Martin's. She says, and I quote, "He wasn't crazy. There really was another family."
Crazy stuff, huh? Crazy stuff. Plane on Fire, and we have a more in-depth look later as well on this one here. Dr. Tucker learned about the best-known recent reincarnation case study from TV producers in 2002, so this is fairly recent research, everybody. He was contacted to work for and appear on a show about reincarnation. The program unfortunately never aired. It was told about James Leininger, a 4-year-old Louisiana boy who believed he was once a World War II pilot who had been shot down over Iwo Jima.
Oh, I love this one.
Bruce and we've got that like a bit more detail in later on as well. Bruce and Andrea Leininger first realized that James had these memories when he was 2 and woke up from a nightmare, yelling, "Airplane crash, plane on fire, little man can't get out." He also knew details about World War II aircraft that it would seem impossible for a toddler to know. For instance, when Andrea referred to an object on the bottom of a toy plane as a bomb, James corrected her, saying it was a drop tank. Another time, he and his parents were watching a History Channel documentary, and the narrator called the Japanese plane a Zero. James insisted that it was a Tony. In both cases, he was right. The boy said they had also been named James in his previous life and that he'd flown off a ship named the Natoma. The Landingers discovered a World War II aircraft carrier called the USS Natoma Bay. In its squadron was a pilot named James Houston, who had been killed in action over the Pacific. James talked incessantly about his plane crashing, and he was disturbed by nightmares a few times a week. His desperate mother contacted past life therapist Carol Bowman for help. Bowman told Andrea not to dismiss what James was saying and to assure him that whatever happened had occurred in another life and body, and he was safe now. Andrea followed her advice, and James' dreams diminished. His parents co-authored Soul Survivor, a 2009 book about the family's story.
That's one of the stories when someone asks me about reincarnation, I cite this example. And there's also another example, Meki, where there was a girl in this life who said that she was a boy in the last life, and railway tracks were at the back of a house, and she was playing with a dog, and her foot got stuck in and around the railway track itself, and she was killed by the train. And the girl described the house, the street, all the roads, and the neighbours, and their family name, and it took, referring to a number of different censuses that had occurred over the years to line it up, but they found the family and the house, and they confirmed that in one census the boy in the last life was there, and the next one he'd disappeared. He wasn't in the census, and they found the records, and it showed that he'd been hit by the train. I mean, this stuff you can't make up. You can't make up the girl saying, turn left, turn right, straight on here, okay, this is the house, and then it confirms to be the correct house of the family that she can't possibly have even known had even existed.
Yeah.
Right? To me, that's enough. And Meki, I'm going to say this again, and that's, what's the quote Carl Sagan said about evidence?
Oh, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
And what do we say? No.
Any evidence is okay.
Evidence is evidence, and it's enough.
Extraordinary claims require the exact same amount of evidence as any other claim. It's just, as soon as you get the evidence, there it is.
That's right. Yeah. Evidence is evidence. All right, so this leads us to criticism. All right, so Professor French, who is familiar with Dr. Tucker's work, says the main problem with his investigating is that the research typically begins long after the child has been accepted as a genuine reincarnation by his or her family and friends. About James Leiniger, French says, although his parents insist they never watched World War II documentaries or talked about military history, we do know that at 18 months of age, James was taken to a flight museum where he was fascinated by the World War II planes. He says, in all probability, the additional details were unintentionally implanted by his parents, by a counsellor, possibly, who was a firm believer in reincarnation. Dr. Tucker says that he has additional documentation for many of James Leiniger's statements, and they were made before anyone in the family had heard of James Houston or the USS Natoma Bay. French responds that children's utterances are often ambiguous and open to interpretation. For example, perhaps James said something that just sounded a bit like Natoma. Right, I'm going to produce the I don't break for this Professor French guy and put them on my car. If I see Professor French, I'm not going to break my car. I'm not going to slow down. Bruce Leiniger, James's father, understands French's disbelief. I was the original skeptic, he says, but the information James gave us was just so striking and unusual. If someone wants to look at the facts and challenge them, they're welcome to examine everything we have. Bruce laughs at the idea that he and his wife planted the memories, saying, you try telling a 2-year-old what to believe. You're not going to be able to give them a script. And I absolutely know that to be true.
Look, that's the thing. If you have children, you know just what a 2-year-old is like. Will some children do it for attention? Sure, absolutely. But that's just, then it would be fantasy, because they're just making it up. There would be no corroboration of any of the facts. So the difference here between attention seeking and fantasy play is that the statements and the memories, the expressed happenings of that child have a basis in fact. They can be verified in reality. If somebody said, I went to unicorn land and I ate purple lollipops all day, okay, that's probably harder to verify. But these are fairly it is, right?
No,
but these are fairly
on the outset. I'm just going to say it's probably unlikely, right?
I don't want to dismiss it quite yet.
Neki, to support your argument here, then why are 3,000 cases verifiable?
Yeah, so that's a lot of cases, and again, I believe, and I'm going to interject here, some of my hypothesis and some of the shiny sides, tinfoil head zone. So just strap yourself in. The reincarnation process that we're all part of, and I believe it's a deliberate thing that we're part of here, that keeps us in this particular reality. And this, if you know my epiphany, then you know why we're here, to make this reality exist, essentially, is imperfect. It's an imperfect process. And it seems that especially trauma can lead to memories to bleed through, right? Because, look, I think everything is energy, more or less. And it's forms of energy we don't understand yet. And there are connections that we don't understand yet. There's a certain fabric to reality which we don't fully comprehend yet either. Okay, so there's this substrata. We live on the surface, but there's so many other layers and substrata, and there's stuff going on that we just don't understand. And some of it is energy transfer, I believe, right? And with that energy transfer, it could be information bleed as well. Because ultimately, it's all about information transfer as well. That's really the only. In fact, we know now that information can in fact escape a black hole. We've learned recently. But the point is that because the system is imperfect, these things can happen. And rather than having our memory wiped, which is the intent, by the way, in my opinion, some of it, or some of us, comes through to the other side. But then, it sort of fades away as your other life starts to set in and take over. And your brain is no longer as malleable as it once was. Just after you're born, the memories fade. And you have a hard time remembering when you were a child. Like if you're 1 year old or 6 months old or even 2 years old, you don't have very many clear memories. How much harder must it be to remember a life that came before this life, right? That's so much harder. So no, I'm sorry. This is really the problem here. This is not empirical science. It cannot be empirical science. We gather evidence, yes, but none of it is repeatable. You can't repeat it. You can't predict it either. You can't predict the experiment's outcome. Someone dies. If you could say that, okay, look, Bob is going to die, and he's going to be reincarnated into John over there. Okay, if there's your empirical proof. Okay, there's your empirical proof. However, the problem is there is no way to empirically prove reincarnation. We have to find another mechanism, and if it's anecdotal evidence, so be it. Okay. It is just something that we have to investigate seriously, because this is a fundamental tenet of our lives. This is of primary importance. We don't just die and that's it. It seems that there's something after, and it's not the pearly gates. It seems
you can't carve a mobile phone number into your arm, and then when you are reincarnated, you can just read it off or call the number, right? You can't have the central station locker number key there, or its location, and open it up and find your kit from your last life. Unfortunately, I think anecdotal is the way to be able to prove it, and I think that's sufficient evidence.
Yeah. Until or unless we can access that place.
Oh, yeah.
Because clearly we leave the physical world, like the world we understand, the gross matter world, right? And this is really something the Gnostics refer to as well. And then we maybe go into like a holding area or something. If once we can access that, all bets are off, right?
What about your AI? Your AI in a computer game that remembers the player at some point. Yeah? And it says, "Oh, I'm this dude who, I don't know, drives this car and he works at this place," and the people go, "What? How do you even remember this? I don't even know how I know."
Yeah.
There's something going on. It's clearly
there
evident,
is something going on,
and there's enough cases for, and I'm one of those. There's enough cases for it to be a thing, and I think we should, like the Eastern religions, accept that it's a thing and try and work it out.
Dave, that's the thing, and thank you for bringing it up. So this is not a recent fad. So none of the things that are recently unexplained or that experiencing some kind of renaissance, including the UFO phenomenon or anything like that, this is old stuff. This has been around for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
The reincarnation, this is one of the earliest tenets of belief that we have. This is embedded in our very oldest belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
This predates everything.
I think it was handed down. I think this knowledge was handed down.
Completely. There was a civilization that came very high, that probably got further than we did, and they handed down a whole bunch of knowledge, which is now kept alive in a lot of secret societies today. Mm-hmm. And you have to go through stages of reincarnation, or be really smart like me and figure it all on your own. Okay? So those are the options you have here, right? You're going to figure it on your own, spend all your life doing only that, right? And figuring it out, and then or join a secret society. Up to you. But the point is, this knowledge is there. Okay, mm-hmm. It's just being kept from us for various reasons, and certainly kept from us to protect that knowledge as well, because you want that knowledge to keep on living. And if there are interested parties that want to wipe the knowledge out, which is not, they will wipe out the holders of the knowledge, like we've seen in the Albigensian Crusades, like we've seen with the Manichaeans, like we've seen with the Cathars, like we've seen with the Knights Templar, and on it goes. And the Gnostics, of course, the heretics, right? Anybody who's got knowledge that's not liked, is stomped upon and wiped out. And I fully understand why the secret societies keep the knowledge secret. Okay, the music is there. Donate if you can, please. Let's keep the memory alive. Let's keep the station alive. Let's make sure that the platform remains into the eternal future. And thank you for listening, everybody.
And stay tuned for a roundtable or Jer Bear show, whichever one he chooses to do tonight. Take care, everyone. See you next week.